So we'll start by calculating the daily energy expenditure. The daily energy expenditure has four major components. The first is the basal metabolic rate, or the BMR. The next one is the diet induced thermogenesis, or DIT. Next is active lifestyle related physical activity energy expenditure. And last one is formal physical exercise energy expenditure. Typically, this is where we start because one, it's easy to calculate for the most part. And if we can get this number, then we can estimate how much daily energy intake you need to create a negative 500 uh, calorie daily deficit. So the basal metabolic rate, or the BMR, it's the amount of calories that a person burns to keep the body functioning at rest. So, sitting there watching TV or laying in bed, that's what the BMR is. We calculate an estimate of the BMR. We have a handy calculator for that on our website, but you can find other ones on the internet. Just use the one, the Mifflin St. John equation is the one that we prefer. It accounts for 60 to 75% of daily calorie expenditure. Um, so it is an exercise, usually, that takes up most of your calories. Uh, BMR is influenced by a number of factors: body temperature, food intake, body weight, sex, age. Um, so it isn't a simple calculation, but if you put in the numbers, it's doable. And if we want to get a better um, uh, idea of what your BMR is, then we have to measure it directly through a test called indirect calorimetry. Diet induced thermogenesis, or DIT, it's the energy required to digest, absorb, transport, and deposit food. Typically, it's 10% of the total amount of calories ingested over 24 hours. And so, if you take in 2,000 calories, your DIT is about 200 calories. So, it isn't just celery um, that causes you to burn calories when you eat it. All right, energy expenditure through physical activity. All right, so physical activity accounts for 20 to 30% of the total daily energy expenditure. There are two kinds of physical activity. One, you have active lifestyle related physical activity, and this is not exercise. This is just everyday life, walking around, standing, climbing the stairs at work or at home, cleaning the house, gardening. I mean, basically stuff where you're doing the opposite of sitting, but it is an exercise that we count separately. For our purposes in this program, we estimate this by counting the number of steps on a pedometer. Um, Formal exercise, which is physical activity that involves effort and increases your heart rate and respiratory rate. I mean, that's a separate thing. They both burn calories, but they have different purposes uh, for in weight loss. Um, an active lifestyle related physical activity. I mean, the opposite of sitting. So you have to reduce the sedentary part of your life. And then formal exercise helps you build muscle, particularly as you lose weight. It helps you preserve muscle because as you lose weight, you tend to lose not only fat but also muscle. So fat being bad weight and then muscle being good weight. You can lose both. So exercise, especially in that setting, is important to maintain good weight. All right, the daily step count for the active lifestyle related um, energy expenditure. So we get a pedometer, um, take the steps, and again, it's different from formal exercise. Take off your pedometer when you are actually exercising. Don't count those steps. And then you can calculate the calories that you burn through the steps by taking your weight in kilograms, multiplying by 0.0005, and then the number of steps. And we have a handy calculator on our website to help you calculate that as well. All right. Formal exercise. Now, exercise is exercise, common sense. Um, the intensity of your exercise matters. So, a lot of people will tell me, I went walking. And some types of walking it counts as exercise for our purposes, and sometimes don't. If you look at the chart on the right, um, you'll note that you have to walk fast enough for it to count as moderate intensity activity. So, um, moderate intensity activity, uh, it has a rating on that far right column. At the top of the column it says MET, MET. What MET stands for is metabolic equivalent of task. And basically, it's a way to rate the intensity of your exercise. You just need to make sure your exercise is intense enough. Um, so if you're if the intensity of your exercise is below 3 or below, then basically doesn't count for our purposes. Um, Now, there's a way to calculate the the amount of calories that you burn um, by exercising by taking the MET rating and then multiplying that by your weight in kilograms, and then the minutes of physical activity, dividing that by 60. And again, we have a calculator for that.